moment to breathe, grab a beverage or two. We got professional guests with lots of stories for you. So take a seat right here and join us on Careers Over Beers.
Alrighty, you can hear me fine?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
great.
cool.
Yep.
Well, welcome to Careers Over Beers, folks. My name is Jesse Krause, the host, and today I have a radio host in here.
I'm looking forward to this ever since I found out about it. One of my coworkers actually put me onto this.
Is that right?
Yeah. So thanks for having me.
I appreciate you reaching out to me, man. I'm kind of nervous because you're way more familiar behind a mic than I am.
But don't sell yourself short, because I'm still very new to the whole podcast thing. And my wife and I have tried to kick off a couple, and they've just kind of fell off by the wayside. They didn't necessarily resonate with the right audience. So you have much more experience than I, so I'm defaulting to you and your experience. Wow. And I walked in here, I mean, between the cameras and the audio, you're much better suited for...
Oh, well, I appreciate it, man. This is all new to me, though. You know, I'm just kind of going with it and learning as I go.
Good. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. So
yeah.
I like the fact you've got, I've got one of these in my fridge.
Ice balls.
Yes. Look
at those things.
Mine is a Death Star.
Is it really?
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
Oh, shit,
yeah,
man, that's badass.
No, it's a Death Star. So, yeah, and it's funny. Every time I put it in my glass, I say that famous line from Star Wars, that's no moon, that's a Death Star. Or no, that's no moon, that's a space station. So every time I pour that in my whiskey, sometimes when I post pictures of my whiskey with the giant ball in there, I use that phrase. So
I need to get me one of those Death Stars.
Four roses. 4 roses,
yeah. You told me you're a fan.
No, I appreciate the fact that you are kind of customizing your show, Careers Over Beers.
Yes.
For me, because I don't know whether it makes me un-American or not, but I'm not really a beer drinker. However, and it's probably only because I can't yet get Yuengling here in Kansas unless I ask them to bootleg it for me. Which
Smokey and the Bandit style.
Eastbound and down.
Yeah.
I may or may not have been singing that song on my way back from Indiana just after New Year's, because I had a whole trunk full of it.
Did you?
So I mean, I can neither confirm or deny. But
no, it's good stuff, man. I love Yuengling.
Yes, and they're supposed to be. I heard they're supposed to be. Starting to sell it in Kansas here very, very soon, because I want to say it was maybe Coors picked up distribution rights.
Did they really?
So they're coming west now of the Mississippi, further than just.
Let's go.
Missouri. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
let's get on that. So
if I can drink a big Yuengling at Buffalo Wild Wings, I'll be happy.
Yeah, get on that for sure. Have you tried the Hershey's chocolate porter?
No.
Oh, damn it! I should have bought one of those with me, because
from Yuengling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, I've had what's the one that I had that was black label? It's not a Hershey's chocolate, but it's definitely like a stout.
Yeah, there's a chocolate stout out there. I know Sam Adams does one. I know Dragon's Milk does one. But this is Yuengling's version of it, and it's pretty chocolatey. It's pretty good.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Well, let's bust into this 4 roses.
Yeah, absolutely. Four roses. For me, like I kind of described it to you, it's a good mid-priced bourbon that everyone can afford, but it's a really drinkable bourbon, and that's what I like about it. I mean, you can go ahead and make a cocktail out of it if you want to make an old-fashioned or whiskey sour or whatever, but if you just want to sip on it, you want to pour it over ice, you want to have it straight up, 1 finger, 2 fingers?
2 fingers for me.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you, sir.
2 big fingers.
Yes, sir.
So
now I'm a big bourbon fan myself,
yeah.
And for the show here, it is called Careers Over Beers because it's just got a little ring to it,
Right.
But I drink anything the guest wants. I think the last podcast I drank coffee.
Oh, okay.
Guests,
yeah, that's good. Yeah. Look, you don't have to have alcohol to have a good time. So
no, and I know there's people out there that have interesting careers that don't drink alcohol.
Sure.
So I don't want to eliminate all them.
I love it, but it's a great podcast title overall, and
I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much.
I think you got something here. So
cheers, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Oh yeah, I like that.
That's nice. I think that's the first time I've ever actually had 4 roses.
It won't be the last. I had a former co-host of mine, anyone familiar with Tiny Burger, who was on the show with me a few years ago, introduced me to 4 roses. He brought it over as a house gift for an open house we were having around Christmas time, and that was the first time I had it, and it was really good.
Good stuff. It's smooth. It's got a nice caramel flavor to it.
I'm glad he didn't listen to me, because we had this big argument. I said, just you and your wife come over. That's all you got. You don't have to bring anything. It's just an open house. You come and go. You don't have to bring anything. And he's like, no, I've got to bring something. You don't show up at someone's house and not bring anything. So I'm actually glad that he didn't listen to me, because if not, I would have never known him.
Hell yeah, man. I'm actually a Weller's fan myself. That's what I like to drink. Yeah.
Funny story about Weller's, if I can share that with you.
Sure.
I ring bells for the Salvation Army, and this was 2 or 3 years back. I was out ringing bells at the Dylan's at Harry and Webb, close to my neighborhood, and one of my regular listeners, Phyllis, came by, and she's like, "You drink whiskey? Would you like some?" I'm like, "Well, it's a little early in the afternoon." She's like, "No, I got a whole bunch of it in my trunk from an old boyfriend who left it behind. He told me to pour it down the sink, and I didn't want to pour it down the sink, and I knew you drank." So I'm like, "Okay, sure, let's see what this is all about." There were like 7 bottles of Weller's in her trunk.
Oh, man.
Yes!
Jackpot.
Yes! I like won the lottery that day. I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'll take that off your hands." It took me a couple of years to drink it, but
Man, that stuff it's getting harder to find too
Yeah.
now. It used to be such an easy, accessible bourbon to find, and now it's like highly sought after for some reason.
Yeah, I think because it's such a fast changing market. It seems like every week there's a new bourbon out there.
Yeah.
And some are good, some aren't. Some taste like NyQuil. I mean, if I'm being 100% honest. And
Kentucky Gentleman.
Yeah, old granddad. No, I'm kidding. It's like that with anything. The one bourbon so far I've been disappointed with, and I haven't tasted all the bourbons. The one bourbon I've been disappointed with, Buffalo Trace.
Oh yeah.
Which is funny because there was a great show on, and I'm going to forget the network I was streaming it on, but it was about the big Buffalo Trace Whistle Pig embezzlement controversy. I think it was on Netflix. Anyway, neither here nor there. I think if you Google it, you'll be able to find it. But so spent, it was 3 episodes. Spent the whole weekend watching this thing about Buffalo Trace, Whistle Pig, Buffalo Trace, and it was finally on sale at my favorite local liquor store, Grove's Liquors, down there on East Kellogg. It's like the Disneyland of booze.
Is it?
Oh yeah, it's just huge. And they had it on sale. It was in the glass case, which is where usually the expensive stuff is. So it was like for $40. I'm like, okay, I got to try it. And
No.
wasn't my favorite.
No.
Wasn't. Now I will say, Whistle Pig, on the other hand, you buy
I do love Whistle Pig.
yeah, you buy anywhere between an $80 to a $200 bottle of Whistle Pig. You don't want to be mixing that with cocktails. You want to just baby that a little
Well,
bit. So.
with like the Buffalo Trace and even Weller's to an extent, people, you either like it or you don't because it has sort of a sweeter taste, right?
Yeah,
it's definitely different.
The Buffalo Trace was sweeter, but for me, it tasted a little medicine-y, and I don't know why. I mean, I didn't have any like double mint gum before I had it, so it wasn't like
Maybe COVID jacked your palate up.
maybe that's what it was. Maybe it just screwed me up. So anyway, we're not here to talk about bourbon the whole time.
Yeah,
so.
go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
All right, so JJ Hayes. I do the morning show on Everything Country 101.3 KFDI. I've been doing that for it'll be 7 years in May. It'll be 7 years in May. I've been with KFDI for 8 years. I wake up Wichita, and hopefully they find me somewhat mildly entertaining, and I make a couple of them laugh every now and then. And I know I do. I know that sounds flippant to say that, but I mean, they'll always. That's the great thing about social media. If you're doing something wrong or doing something right, they will let you know either way.
Oh yeah,
super fast.
Oh yeah,
which is great because I love that sort of interaction. Because I've been in radio now over 31 years, and for the longest time, I used to tell, when I was a manager, I used to tell my employees, you've got very few chances, very limited chances to interact with your audience over the phone, over the air, and in person. And you better kill it every single time in any 3 of those phases. Well, now you add Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and
whole new ball game.
Yeah,
now.
no MySpace. Sorry, Tom for MySpace. We don't hang out with you anymore. But
I wonder if Tom has any friends left on MySpace.
Just himself, I think. So, but
it's a whole different world now, having that
is.
interaction and all the complaints, and there's also assholes out there.
Oh,
and
100%. I will say this, and I'm not trying to backpedal in any stretch. 99% of my listeners are fantastic. They're really great. I'm so transparent with them. They are transparent with me. We get along like friends, more like family, actually. But there are some who, and I'll give you a for instance, and I don't know their name, so I can't call them out by name because, they're going to call up, they're going to yell at you on the phone, and then they're going to hang up. At that point, your argument is null and void. I'm willing to have an adult conversation with anybody about anything if you can just keep your temper. Mm-hmm. This dude calls up and just starts screaming at me, and then just click, gone.
On the air?
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I see. The fortunate thing is, I record all phone calls for that very reason. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, so I get to control the narrative.
Yeah.
We don't take any calls live. We don't have a delay in the studio, and I've worked in some studios that do, but no. So I record everything. That way I can choose if I want to air it or not, and then even with some of the calls I do air, just for the sake of time, I shorten them up just to make them maybe a little bit more interesting, take out a lot of the ums and ahs and things like that. Mm-hmm. So.
No, that makes sense. So there's no delay. Like everything you say when you're talking on air
live.
Is really?
Yep, it's live.
So if somebody, hits you in the foot with a hammer and you go, "Oh fuck!"
Yep.
It's on the air.
It is. Knock on wood. I have not. I'm trying to think. I don't think I have ever said a bad word on the air.
Let's keep it that way.
Yes, right?
Until it's allowed.
Yeah, I've got a clean record for 30. Yeah, until it's allowed. So I've got a clean record for 31 plus years.
Do you think radio will ever be like this podcast format where it's just kind of uncensored, letting people say whatever they want, or are there always going to be rules there in place?
I think there's always going to be rules, only because it is a public format where you're turning into and you don't quite know what you're getting. Whereas with subscription and podcasts and streaming and satellite radio, if you're going to dial into the Howard Stern show, you're pretty much kind of expecting Howard Stern to drop a couple of F-bombs every now and then.
Right.
So I think that's the only reason, because, mom and dad, grandma and grandpa don't want to get caught off guard when they got the kids in the car with some unsavory content, because it is public forum. So I don't think so.
But that being said, if the world does move in a direction where it's acceptable to say words like that and it's not taboo anymore, things could change still.
Fuck yeah, I'd swear all the time. And here's why. Because this is Careers Over Beers, so I'll tease a little bit. Before I got into radio, I was a commercial fisherman out of southern Maine. And that is the saltiest language you will ever... I love my lobstermen brethren, my trawler fishermen brethren, my tuna fishermen brethren, all of them, because some of the things that come out of their mouth, make a trucker blush. But I learned a lot. It started when I was a 12-year-old kid working on a charter boat, hanging out at the docks with some of these older folk, and I would just sit back and listen. And
that's a hard living, isn't it?
It is, and that's the thing that really changed my... And I just remembered the guy's last name. Every time I tell this story, I can never remember his last name, but now I am. So God rest his soul, John Bridges. So there I was. I was down at the town dock in York, Maine, in southern Maine, where I grew up, and it was early morning. I want to say probably 7-ish o'clock, and that's late for fishermen. But this is when I was on the charter boat, and there's John, who at the time I think was close to 70-ish, and he is hauling a couple of wooden lobster traps. And I'll tell you, wooden lobster traps probably weigh, if I'm trying to remember, they probably weigh somewhere. Dry, they probably weigh somewhere 30, 35 pounds. Wet, they're like 60, 70 pounds.
Yeah.
And these were damp. So he's dragging these along the ground, putting them in his skiff, his rowboat. Then he's got to row out to his mooring where his lobster boat is, and then get these out of the skiff, over the rail of the lobster boat, into the lobster boat. Man's working harder before 7 o'clock than most people do most of the day. And so then...
F-bombs get him through that.
Yes, whatever. And I'm watching this, I'm going, God, I can't see myself being John Bridges. I can't see myself 70 years old doing that hard work. And every time I tell this story, I also try and equate it to the farmers, the truck drivers, the sanitation workers, these people who have worked hard all their life doing this hard work. I'm fat and lazy, and so I push buttons and eat donuts for a living now. So, which is right in my wheelhouse. I got to be completely honest. There's always a kitchen full of baked goods that someone's brought in, and all I do is, I do what we're doing now. You're lazier than me. You actually have some guy pushing the buttons for you.
I have some guy over there doing the buttons for me.
How do I get me one of those?
Give him free beer.
Cheers to that. All right, there you go. All right.
It's pretty easy to find a friend that'll do that for me, because
we'll work for a whiskey. Maybe I need to put that out there somewhere.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I got into this too, is because I'm like, what do I like doing? Well, I like drinking with people. I like listening to stories, and I like talking. So it's really smart. Yeah.
Let's do that. It's really smart. And you found a niche. You found things that people like to do and talk about. So there you go.
Hey, thanks, man. Well, you also found your niche, right?
Yeah, so I started at 12 in the charter boat, and I worked my way through kind of just filling in for people. There'd be the occasional guy with the lobster boat whose stern man wouldn't show up, so I'd help him out one day on my day off and things like that, and it just kind of progressed from there. And I worked pretty consistently for a couple of years with a guy named Jeff Donnell, who owned a boat called the Cindy L, and we saw all manner of weather and fishing, and it was really back to that whole hard work thing. It was never anything you see like on, what's that show on TLC? Deadliest Catch.
Deadliest Catch.
Yeah, that's Banana Land out there. And I thought about doing that one year. I found the ad, and for
the experience.
Yeah, just for the experience.
Yeah.
And for the money. I mean, they make
they do
6 figures in like 4 months, but you could die. So I mean, there's that. So I did a multitude of different things, and had some great experiences, and I still miss it. I still miss the Ernest Hemingway romantic aspect of being
The culture,
out in the ocean.
being out there.
Absolutely. The culture, the sunrises in the morning, the sunsets, being out in the fog, the lighthouses, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, that stuff's always lured me in too. You know, just
Yeah.
like how the sea can swallow you at any time. You know, respect the sea.
Yep, 100%. So I miss all of that still. But I was at my old high school's basketball game. They were doing a charity fundraiser. It was our faculty versus some of the New England Patriots back then. Mosey Tutupu, you're probably too young to remember Mosey Tutupu. You probably heard the name Doug Flutie, though.
Oh, yeah.
Doug Flutie can dunk. My man's 5'7", he can dunk. I witnessed it. Hand to God, I witnessed it, and the whole gymnasium went bananas. So I'm doing the whole play-by-play thing in the gymnasium because I was asked to, and sure, why not? And at the end of the game, I had like 7 or 8 people come up to me, and they're like, hey, have you ever thought about getting into radio? You got a pretty decent voice. Is this something you've ever thought about? And I hadn't. I mean, I was just going to, I looked into going to school out west. I got accepted to USC. I was going to be an oceanographer. I thought about that from the sciencey end of things. I thought about maybe going into the Coast Guard. I looked into getting my
You were a man of the sea.
yeah,
Man.
I thought about getting my captain's license, my pilot's license for large container ships or tugboats. But then they started getting into celestial navigation, and I got to be 100% honest with you, that stuff's hard.
Yeah.
I'm like, nope. I saw math.
How old were you when you were going through this?
18, 19, 19-ish, yeah. And so I listened to those voices of the 7 or 8 people who approached me that night, and I went to a place called Northeast Broadcasting School. It was a short, like 9-month, I equate it to a trade school kind of program. And now it's a 2-year, you get a 2-year degree in everything from digital graphics, imagery to audio technology and things like that. So, and the way the program was set up is it's 9-month program, 4 months in, and the first 4 months you learn TV and radio, and then 4 months in you pick one. You basically decide which one you want to focus on. And I chose radio for the simple reason that everyone in my TV classes up until that point were letting me down. I realized pretty quick that any sort of project in TV required a multitude of people to work on it.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people dropping the ball. And I'm like, if this is what TV's like in the real world, I want nothing to do with it. I think I only considered TV because my mother and all our mothers were like this and are like this. Oh my God, you're so handsome. You look great on TV. You look so good. You're so handsome. I'm like, okay, Mom. You need glasses. But anyway, no mother's going to tell you you're ugly. So, but I looked at all the people who were dropping the ball, and I'm like, let's just try radio. And I fell in love with production first and foremost. I fell in love with making commercials and trying to create that theater of the mind with word and audio imagery. So I started in my first day after my last class in Boston, which is where the school was. I'd been interning at a station called WVBF. And Al Frazier was the production director's name, and I'd been kind of just hanging out with him and watching him, and he really got me passionate about making sure the audio was right, the imagery was right, the theater of the mind was right, use the right words, all of that, and that's where it all started.
Yeah, and just the way that you have to be on it all the time, which is crazy to me. I don't know how you guys actually do that, where you're talking the entire time pretty much that you're live, except for commercial breaks and stuff.
Sure.
But you got to be on it, or else if you slip up or you are having a bad day. That's also another interesting aspect of being a radio host is that in the morning everybody's waking up and they're going to work and they put you on to kind of get in a better mood and and you already have to be in a good mood and you're the one doing it, right? Nobody's there to really.
That's the thing. It is hard. In fact, I just the other day, I'm glad you brought that up. A couple days ago, I posted something where I said something like, "I don't feel like doing radio today," or something like that. And it was an honest post. I was kind of whining, sure, because everyone does that every once in a while on Facebook. But it was more of an expression of, God, I just wish I didn't have to be J.J. Hayes today.
Yes.
But again, I'm grateful every day to be J.J. Hayes. I love what I do. Has it gotten different? Yes. Has it gotten harder in some aspects? Yes, because we go back to the social media addition to the piece of doing radio, and now it's like doing 3 or 4 different radio shows. Because in the morning, I'm using every bit of time I have. Songs are playing to, build a blog about this particular news story, or set audio aside for the podcast that I put together after the show is over with, to trying to make sure that my next bit is pretty well prepped and edited down, and planning for.
Yeah, what's the prep actually like when you're going to talk? Do you know what you're going to be talking about the whole time, or
yeah, pretty
are you
much
spitballing it sometimes?
No, well, okay, so I know the topic I'm going to talk about, and for the most part, I know the in, and if my boss is listening, I know the out, although that's not always the case. He likes me to know the out too, just so the bit doesn't go too long. But I've gotten good at it now over the last few years, where you can know when you're going too long, and then you start to shift into that out gear, and you find one, even if it's not prepped. But so yeah, I mean, it's I know what I'm going to be talking about even 1 or 2 days beforehand. I have a prep sheet. I have what I say holes to fill. I have my time blocks where I know I'm going to be talking, and I've got those filled in with topics I'm going to be talking about. Some are dated, meaning if I don't talk about it today, it's going to sound awkward talking about it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And others are not dated, so that if something happens overnight, I can just bump them to the next day or something like that. But usually my show, each and every day, my show is about 75% prepped.
And you're doing this 5 days a week?
5 days a week. I voice track on Saturday, which means I can pre-record the show on Friday. It sounds like I'm there, but I'm not.
Okay.
And that used to be this big taboo secret that your bosses didn't want. Don't tell the listeners you're not there on. But I'm telling you right now, I am not there on Saturday. So when you listen to me on Saturday and then you see me at the farmer's market, connect the dots. It's recorded. I love me the farmer's market. I'm not going to miss out on rhubarb and actually do that show live on Saturday morning. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, I mean the show is I want it to be prepared, and it wasn't always. We my bosses, my managers here as of recent have been really good, giving me some great opportunities to sit with national talent coaches who have some best practices to make sure you're well prepped.
So you already have the voice, obviously,
Thank you.
which I don't know if that's really a requirement to be in radio. Do they look for a good voice, or?
Not so much now, I don't think, as they used to. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, back in the what I'll call the golden age of radio for me, which was like the 70s and the 80s, they had these big voices, and they had the big,
Yeah, they just ring through
yes,
you,
Yes,
And you do have that too.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And then it kind of shifted from maybe not every air personality needs to have it, but our imaging person, the person who identifies the radio station in between the song, all those recorded elements, that person needs to have this big voice. So they used to have these guys with, and I remember when I was a production director in New Hampshire, I worked, our imaging guy was, we called him Gags. It was Mike Gagliano, I think his name was. And he was so good at what he did, because he had that big voice, and it was a big gravelly voice. Mike Gagliano, and it kind of sounded like that. And he would always deliver the lines you had written for him, but then he would always do the outtakes and just keep on talking in between lines. He would say whatever was on his mind, and obviously some of it wasn't necessarily radio airing worthy, but
right.
But I think he was smart to do that, because it gave us these outtakes we could then use in the production pieces. God, I remember using one of his lines, and it was for a big contest we were doing, and he was trying to deliver a line, and he started coughing, because when you talk like this, sometimes if you don't do it right, it makes your throat tickle, and then you start coughing. So he starts coughing, and out of the blue, he goes, "Oh man, these non-filters are kicking my ass." I used it. We were at a rock station. I used it for something else completely different, but it was, so it used to be then the imaging guy or imaging gal has to have these big voices, and now I think it's just as if you've got an engaging voice that still cuts through. There's a guy who I used to work with who's now doing really well at it. His name is Chad Erickson. In fact, this is a T-shirt, Hot Mic Productions. It's his clothing line he's now gotten his hands into, but he started doing voice work, and now he's represented by the William Morrison Agency and other agencies. He's done stuff for ESPN, CBS, and movie trailers, and a whole nine yards.
Wow.
And he's got a great voice. Is it a big voice? No, but it's a unique voice, and it's a voice unique to him, and it's a voice he knows how to use.
Right.
And that's the key, I think, nowadays more than anything.
Just because if your voice sounds like the rest of everybody else on the radio,
right,
then you don't really stand out, and your listeners, you want to be,
yeah,
this is JJ, right? You know?
And I'm to the point now where people will recognize my voice. We were out at Kobe, Japanese steakhouse over there. And
good stuff.
And we were out for, there was a bunch of us in our group having birthday parties, so we're like, well, let's all just get together and celebrate all of them. And there was 7 of us, and a couple got added onto our party, because I think it's 9 or 10 around the hot grill there. So they tagged on, and we were talking. And he's like, "Are you JJ?" And he said he recognized me by my voice. So that's happening more and more, and it's still a little weird. But because I've always thought I still have one of those, I don't know, average voices, meaning just like every other radio guy, but maybe I'm in that 1980s mentality still, but maybe now the fact that it's shifted to all these other unique voices like that Chad Erickson I was talking about, maybe that's why I stand up. I don't know. But anyway, it's flattering to be recognized. I love this stuff. I always encourage my listeners, if they see me out, Dillon's or wherever, Quick Trip, whatever, just, say hi. I'm not weird. I don't bite. I'm not going to throw you.
You don't have a split personality where you're a different guy on the air.
No, I do because JJ's not my real name. Some people know that, and I've let them into the inner circle of trust, and they've found my personal page, and that's fine. I'm pretty good about judging people, and
so that's a radio name you made?
It is. I've had numerous radio names. That is just the latest of many. So,
really?
Yeah. I used to be Catfish Hunter at one radio station.
Catfish Hunter.
Like the old baseball player. Yeah.
Okay.
Because here's the stupid thing, and I can say this now because I'm like 20 years removed from this radio station, and this was the dumbest thing to ever happen to radio. And I think there are still some stations out there. They went through a whole phase in radio, like mid-'90s, where they started naming country stations with a Froggy moniker, a Froggy brand, Froggy 99.3. Okay, whatever. That's what it was. It was Froggy 99.3.
Why is that?
I don't know. Because the radio suits who thought they knew better decided, you know what this world needs more of is more froggy country radio. Stupid. So, and what was even dumber was then to expect the entire air staff to have pond, swamp, frog themed names. I got lucky. I picked a cool name. Catfish Hunter was a baseball player. I'm like, yeah, I want that one. I spoke up fast. Everyone else is thinking, I want that one. I want Catfish Hunter.
They just want it to sound real country.
Yes, because some poor bastard got Al G. Al-G. God, what did there was a young lady who worked for us, and Lily Pad. Some I don't know, but I got Catfish Hunter.
Man.
Dodged a bullet there. So
yeah, I'm glad they went away from that.
Yeah. So anyway,
have you always been involved in country music stations?
Good question. Let me take a sip.
Okay. And on top of that, are you also a country music fan?
Okay. No to the first question. Yes to the second question. So I've worked a bunch of different formats. I've worked active rock, classic rock, oldies, sports, news talk, top 40, adult contemporary, like your Michael Bublé's, and I said oldies. Let's see, and of course country several times. I had like 3 or 4 different tours of country. The interesting benefit to my time in country radio is when I first got into radio back in 1990-91, I got to be a part of a format flip from that station I was talking about, WVBF. We became Boston's first country station, and our call letters changed to WCLB, and it was great because we had fooled the local newspapers into thinking we were switching like way, way old, like bubblegum oldies, like 1950s oldies, because we were playing a bunch of imaging that week, going, Friday at 4 p.m., WVBF becomes a thing of the past, and then we'd play, some the Ventures or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the Boston Herald jumped on that, like, oh my God, VBF is going really, really old. And then at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon, we played Country Club with Travis Tritt and Marty Stewart. People lost their damn minds because Boston wasn't really ready for country, but we were ahead of the curve. So while the staff was getting hammered in the conference room because they catered in with Tex-Mex and a bunch of Dos Equis and Coronas, I was in the studio because they went basically personality-less all weekend long and just swept music all weekend long, just to get people used to it. But the phones, of course, and they wanted people to answer the phones, and every phone was an angry phone. What the hell is this hillbilly redneck shit? I'm just, yeah, so.
Well, it's a lot easier in Kansas then, right?
Yeah, it's definitely an easier sell in Kansas. But my point to that long-winded story was, when that first happened, it was, the Marty Stewarts, the Travis Tritts, the Alan Jacksons of the world.
Which is old school now.
Which is old school now, but it's when country was really starting to take off.
Oh, yeah, the 90s.
Garth Brooks, Reba McEntire, all that.
Talk about a great decade for country music,
Yes, Brooks and Dunn. So that was my first experience with country music. And then after a departure from that to various other formats, I came back to it in Virginia when I was doing radio in there. And then that was the time of your Brad Paisley's, your Kenny Chesney's, just starting with the Luke Bryans, your
Mid 2000s or so.
Yeah. Or late 90s, early 2000s. That's when it was starting to transition into that. And now my most recent tour of duty with country has been great because it's been, everything from the Dan and Shays, the pop country, the Dan and Shays.
Country did take a weird turn where it's,
It has, but there's still, people like Eric Church and Luke Combs who are doing the more traditional stuff, Justin Moore.
Yep.
And then you get your Red Dirt Country, which we don't play really much of on KFDI. And we don't play a lot of enough female artists on KFDI. That'll be my little TED Talk for that. But, for me, music evolves. And, people will say, well, this ain't, I get this call a lot when people call up and scream at me and hang up. That ain't country, click. I'm like, okay, all right. How about we have a discussion? Let's have an open discussion. Nope, I don't get that. But music evolves.
Yes.
If you think back to when Johnny Cash and George Jones and the Everly Brothers were being played on country radio. That's good shit, but it wasn't country. Not for what those older folks were used to listening to. So it was transitioning, it was growing, and it freaked a lot of people out. Well, when Kenny Chesney and Brad Paisley came along, the people who grew up listening to, Reba McEntire, Brooks and Dunn, and Alan Jackson, they probably pushed back a little bit. And oh, these guys ain't country. Now it's even harder because there's a lot less banjo and steel guitar and fiddle and a lot more, EDM and beat tracks.
Yeah,
and
that's really weird to me, especially some of those newer tracks that like Florida Georgia Line or them put out where it's got you got a rap instrumental in the background, and it kind of throws me off. And I'll be honest, I'm an oldies fan myself.
Okay.
And, there is new stuff that I can get into and I enjoy, but when it comes to country music, I think 1980s, 1990s, and even 70s and some 60s, that's my shit.
You and I are similar to that. Some of my favorite, like I'll call these the best country songs ever. "Paint Me a Birmingham," Tracy Lawrence. Mm-hmm. That damn song, here come "Paint Me a Birmingham." I can't sing, but God, don't you know I am belting that out in the car. Brooks and Dunn, I believe.
Neon Moon for me.
Oh yeah. And if you can fight me on this, but Ronnie Dunn has the best voice in country music, if not in most genres. My man can sing.
He can.
Yeah.
But that's just like your opinion, man.
I know. Well, you know what? It is, but it isn't. I mean, you put him in a room, even to this day, you put him in a room with other singers out there, and he'll hold his own for sure.
True, yeah. I'm not doubting that.
To
me, Johnny Cash has something special, just the way his voice rings through you, kind of like a radio host,
Can I pour another?
Oh, for sure, man. Drink up.
All right. No, you're right. I have Johnny Cash on my playlist.
It's almost chilling when you hear Johnny Cash sing a song. It just goes straight to through your bones.
Yep. "Hurt," one of my favorite Johnny Cash songs. Oh man, that song is just if you don't,
and it's a cover.
Yeah. A rock band.
9 Inch Nails.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Which they actually said after they heard that's Johnny's song now.
Yeah.
When they heard his version of it.
Yeah. Crushed it.
Yeah.
Crushed it. So, So I've not always worked in country, but country is probably my favorite format because even to this day, despite the final production of the music coming out of Nashville, some of the best songwriting in the world is coming out of Nashville right now. I think, again, my opinion, but I think, and there's a lot of guys who are going there producing music who aren't necessarily producing country music, but Music City has truly become Music City. Oh yeah, for a lot of people, not just the country format. So,
are you familiar with Logan Mize?
Yeah. Logan, it's funny. His name came up in a discussion today because I've got a request into Logan. Logan, if you're listening, check your Twitter messages.
Shout out to Logan Mize, man. Get your ass on here one of these days. I need to talk to you about.
Okay, so I'll put the ask in. I'll put the ask in for sure. He's got that new album out, Welcome to Prairieville, which is great. So good. I'm like, if you're not, go get Welcome to Prairieville right now from wherever you get your music and listen to the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
I was on my way back from Indiana and had a chance to sit with it because it's 12 hours back from Indiana. So this was a few weeks back, just after New Year's Day. My wife and I were on our way back from her folks' place, and I had it in my phone and I listened to that, the whole thing, and oh God, it's so good. Yeah.
To me, it's the best stuff he's ever put out.
Yep.
I mean, Boys from Back Home will always hold a place in my heart. Yep. But this latest album by Logan, man, you killed it. Yep. It's awesome.
Yep. Good stuff. That was good. That was a good shout out for sure.
Yeah.
So,
going back to when you first started and all that.
Okay.
How hard was it doing what you do? I mean, you say you get everything prepared and you're talking the whole time, you know.
Right.
Was it really hard at first to do all that, or were you always a natural?
Terrifying.
Really?
Now, and this was with a guy who I had a mobile DJ business for 20 years. So I was mobile DJing by the time I got into radio. And so I was comfortable-ish behind a microphone, but yeah, still I was painfully shy when I first got into radio, and nervous, and there was I didn't have a great sense of self-worth, so I would get into my own head a lot of times. So I remember the first time I actually really did a legitimate talk break where I knew people were listening. My first radio air shift was midnight in Boston, and I just drunk crazy people listening at midnight in any market. So, and that's fine, or third shifters. But most of the time, I wasn't on the air. But when I was on the air during the day, it was at a small station in Hampton, New Hampshire called Seacoast 102. The call letters were WZEA, and it was a Saturday afternoon, peak of the summer tourist season, and I just walked in the building. I'm the only one there, and I've got to talk in like 2 minutes, and Whitney Houston's "I Want to Dance with Somebody" is playing right now, and I am just sweating.
A mess.
I'm a mess. My palms were sweaty. My heart was just beating out of my chest. Like, what the hell am I going to? What am I going to? What the fuck am I? Don't swear. Don't swear. Stop saying that. What do you? And I'm talking to myself, and I forget at this point what I said, but it worked out fine.
Worked out.
Yeah. No. And now it's completely natural. I've actually, I can actually sometimes not even be aware that my song is about 3 seconds away from stopping and running out, and I just have to throw my headphones on and start talking, and it pours out. I've had fights with exes on the phone in the studio in between songs, which is really, you bring up that whole piece about whether I'm have all these voices in my head or whether I'm sane or not. Some people would question my sanity if they would witness this, because I'd be sitting there. And, I'd be on the phone. We'd be screaming at each other. Oh, fuck you! Just screaming at each other. And in 3 seconds left, hang on! Slam the phone down. Not hang it up. Just slam. Not even put her on hold so she can hear me, so she can hear how quickly I switch out and don't care about anything that she's saying. So I slammed the phone down. 3 seconds left. And at the time, it was Froggy 99, I think. So I'm like, 99.3 Froggy 99, that was, and just roll right into it.
Oh,
and
wow.
then the minute I turn the microphone off, what the fuck do you what? Just go right back off again, and to be able to switch in and out that fast.
That's a split personality.
Yes, it is.
Fuck you.
Yes.
Good morning, Wichita. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today.
And you have to always, anybody who wants to get into radio, I'm going to tell you this right now. If you've got that sort of potty mouth, split personality, just promise me you'll look down and remember these wise words from JJ. Make sure your fucking microphone button is off. Because
always assume it's on too.
Oh, and now it's even worse because when you're voice tracking, and I love that you're letting me swear. This is great.
Oh, hell yeah.
When you're voice tracking, it's even worse because you're recording, and sometimes you forget you've recorded. This is a shout out to my friend Mickey, and I'm going to share this link for the podcast with him when it's done, because I'm going to share this with my man Michael English, because I know he's going to get a big laugh out of this. We were in Harrisonburg, Virginia, and I think it was like it was late in the morning. He was voice tracking his afternoon show on the adult contemporary station. Now, the demographic there is, 35 to 55, moms and dads, some grandparents, lots of kids in the car who are being picked up from the school. And I say lots of kids in the car because it's very important to the story. So it's like late morning, and Mickey's voice tracking, and we come to find out later he screwed up a brake, and he littered off. Fuck, piss, damn, shit. He might have even threw it in the C word there. I can't remember. I can't swear. But it was awful. It was awful, okay? But it didn't go out over the air. He was voice tracking, right? We get called to a meeting in the conference room. So we all have this meeting. He goes back, sits back in the production room to finish his voice tracking. He hits save. He hit save on that voice track rather than starting over. He forgot. He just got.
Oh no!
And it aired at like 5:03, and they have That fucking drive time. You couldn't have had a worse. It couldn't have been just the most horrific, unimaginable time to put that break on the air was when Mom and Dad had got little Johnny and little, Cindy in the back seat.
Going out for a burger.
Going out for a frozen custard and some French fries. And Jesus, there's Mickey go, fuck, piss, damn, shit, balls. Oh my God, the phone calls.
Oh, man.
And I was his boss at the time.
Angry mamas
I was his boss at the time. And it did not go well for Mickey. It did not. He kept his job. But it did not go well for Mickey.
Yeah, what are the repercussions for somebody like you if you lose it like that?
Oh, it depends.
It
depends on the management and the station and things like that. And I'm glad you asked that story because early in my official radio career, no longer interning, I was hired on at WVBF. And I was doing promotions. I was doing production. No airtime at that particular point in time. So I would spend my downtime hanging out in the afternoons with this guy named Tom Doyle. A huge, super talented man. I mean, he was so good at what he did. Almost on the level like Jim Carrey. Had a bunch of voices, just very, very talented. So I wanted to be Tom Doyle. So I would always hang out with him and have my cup of coffee there. And I'm going to try and paint this picture best I can. So imagine an L, and I'm sitting on the short part of the L on the other side of it. That's my part of the counter. Mm-hmm. The long part of the L is the board, okay? And that's where Tom is sitting with all the buttons and everything. And we're sitting there talking, and I spill my coffee. Now, I didn't spill my coffee anywhere near his board. It just spilled on my part of the counter. But what I didn't know, because I was still newer in radio, underneath my counter was basically the brains and the guts to all the electronics that ran that ran that studio.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah, no, awesome. Super! So everything pretty much melted down. Station goes off the air. This is a major market number. Boston was market number. It doesn't matter. It was a top 10 market. I want to say like 8 or 9. It was a top 10 market.
Did you realize that it was your fault right away?
Oh yeah. So
I would have ran out of there.
No, I stood my ground because at that point it's my fuck up. I want to help, and I've always been like that. If it's if it's your fuck up, stand your ground,
just own it,
yeah, and help fix it. So I did. That's the way I'm built. So here's the funny part. We can always laugh about it later. It wasn't funny then, but here's the funny part. What we didn't know as Tom was going, fuck, and that's how he sounded too. He had a kind of a little bit of a New England accent, and it was very,
fuck.
Yeah, it was a very short fuck. It was fuck, fuck.
It's like that Boston style.
Yeah, sure, yeah, fucking what the fuck, So, and behind our studio is a big glass window that looks into the newsroom, and there's this beating on the back window, and there's like 6 guys in there. They're giving you the cut sign. It's like, what the fuck? What do you fucking want? What? And they're like, no, stop fucking swearing. Because what we didn't know was even though he had his microphone turned off, something I did by spilling my coffee made that microphone live.
You melted down everything else, but the microphone
fused everything. I mean, it was just
except for the piece that was recording.
Yeah. So that was we were transmitting. Something in that studio was still making its way to the transmitter. Something had welded.
That's one of those things you could never replicate.
So he unplugs his microphones. Someone comes running in and they pull the back of the microphone plug of the XLR cable out of the back of the microphone.
Just take a scissors and cut the cable.
They just pulled it. They couldn't pull it fast enough. So then they leave. He's like, when are we gonna fucking get back on the fucking air? And then they start. Even when the microphone's unplugged, the board is essentially an active microphone at that point, and it's still transmitting. People are just losing their minds. So I mean, look, here's another piece of advice from the world of JJ. If you're going to do something, go big. I mean, look, to all y'all.
Go all out with it.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, to all y'all who are going to break the law and go steal like cash register out of the Piggly Wiggly. No, I mean, go live out your dream from Grand Theft Auto and go steal a cop car or something. That's going big. Just don't hurt anybody. So I went big. I went to the equivalent of GTA big. So the next day, and I was so short in my radio career. I figured I was dead. I was like less than 6 months in radio, and I figured my career was done. Everyone's going to know about what I did. It'll be radio legend. Jim Hilliard was the general manager's name. Big old Texan. He was about 50 years old at the time. Just white hair, big dude, like mountain of a man, like 6'8", something like that. Had that real thick Texas drawl. And he was stewing over that all night long because the minute I walked in the building at like 8:30, hey. Come on over here, son. Well, oh, shit. I might as well just go grab a cardboard box, get my shit, and put it in. And so he closes his door, and we go into his office. And he's got that big corner office in the Prudential Building of Boston, and 13th floor. And sits down, and it was the shortest meeting of my life. Shortest meeting of my life. He looks at me. He goes, yeah, I kind of screwed up yesterday, didn't you, son? I'm like, yeah, I did. I'm really sorry about that. He's like, it's all right. We all make mistakes. That's your one. You ever fucking do that again, I'll tie you to the back of my pickup truck and drag you down Boylston Street. We understood? Yes, sir. And, as funny as that story is, and as scared as I was, in all honesty, it taught me a lot as a manager later on down the road in my radio career when I became a manager on how to treat your employees. Give them that grace of that mistake.
Sure.
You kind of have to.
Everybody makes mistakes.
Everybody makes
mistakes.
mistakes.
If you repeat the same mistake,
yes, exactly.
then it's an issue.
So to this day, I keep my beverages well away from any electrical equipment for that very reason.
That's
because
I should probably do that.
Yeah,
I'm doing all sorts of shit out here.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you, dude. To this day, and it's just a natural response now. I know where my board is, I know where the equipment is, and I put it on right at the tippy tip of my fingers over on a part of the board where if it spills, it's going to take out a mouse pad maybe. And that's about it. So.
Now, as far as other things go, though, like let's say the morning coffee goes right through and you got to take a shit.
Yes, no, because
you're talking, you're like, hey, Wichita today, it's gonna.
Yeah. You had just some really bad burritos the night before. No, dude, I've been there.
Does it happen?
Talking my language. Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, I like to eat, and sometimes I make bad choices when I eat because I'll eat anything pretty much. So the benefit here is, radio today compared to radio back then is everything's all on automation. It's all on a computer. It's all, I put it on autopilot. It'll keep just playing until I take it off autopilot. So I can go take the biggest shit of my life if I want to. I mean, honestly, I can grab a magazine. I can grab my phone with me. I can sit there and, just whatever. And back in the day, you didn't have that luxury because all music was either on CD or before that, shows you how old I am, it was on these things called carts, which looked like 8-track tapes. And they would, you put them in, and when they stopped, they stopped. There was no relay that would fire the next one. So you to put it in booping terms, pinch it off, because you only got 3.5 minutes. And I've developed a really great internal clock because of that.
Yeah.
Funny story about that. Was it 1980 something, 1990 something. A hurricane came rolling through Boston. I want to say it was Gloria. Name's not important. It was a Category 1. It was but still, whipping through Boston, some of the skyscrapers, it really amped up, and it was so windy that I could go into the men's room at the 13th floor of the Prudential Building, and we recorded the sound of the building swaying. Sounded like an old Spanish galleon, so that was kind of creepy.
Oh, that freaked me out.
Now, WZLX, the rock station, legendary rock station in Boston, was on the 52nd floor of the Hancock Building, so they were getting some wind. It was blowing windows out of that building, so they started to evacuate people. So they put on some live Allman Brothers track that was like 28 minutes long and just left. And they were able to basically make it. They got everybody out of the building, determined it was just a couple of windows blowing, and they got them back up to the 52nd floor before the song ended. But I mean, now again, you can just, as long as you still got power, you can just leave it on autopilot and it'll just go.
Now it's got to be so easy compared to back then.
It is. Now there are still some pitfalls. I mean, if you forget to, and this happens to me. If there's this one thing I'm not good at, there's so many things going on, I get distracted and I forget to take it out of autopilot. So if you're getting ready to do a break, and I'll have the headphones on, I'll be sure I know what I'm talking about, but I forget to take it out of autopilot. So the minute I turn my microphone on and start to talk, fucking commercial plays. I'm like, damn it! So then I'm like, no, stop talking. It's not your turn yet. Is usually my ultimate response. But if you ever hear that listening to me, that's because me, JJ Hayes, the big dummy, forgot to take it out of autopilot. So that's, if that's the worst thing that happens in my day.
So yeah, how involved are you with like commercials and songs, especially in choosing that?
I'm not. I do the production I have my share of production that I do for commercials. And then they get scheduled by our traffic department, not driving down the road, how are the roads, traffic department, but the traffic department that schedules the commercials to make sure that they don't conflict with each other and they air at the right time, so when the client's listening, they can hear their commercials, so on and so forth. Then they handle the billing and all that. So they schedule the commercials, and then my boss schedules the music. And that's the thing. People call up for requests, and a lot of times if I tell you I'm going to play the song you requested, it's only by dumb luck that it's been scheduled and it's coming up in like 20 minutes. Or I can try and steer you away from a particular Keith Urban song you want to hear and just say something like, well, you know what, let me try and get some Keith Urban on for you here in the next few minutes. Chances are, he's one of
So you can't actually play somebody's song that they want?
No, I don't have the power to put a new artist on. I don't have the power to play whatever I want. Every once in a while, I break the rules. But for the most part, I pretty much just play what's programmed because it's, and this is the part about radio that a lot of people don't know. Music is scheduled by a program in such a way that it makes sense. And by that I mean there's research done to determine which songs resonate best with all these research groups they go out to. And then these songs are placed into categories, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Let's say, for instance, A being your top 10 records, your current power slam hits that are just playing every 2.5 hours on our station. I think they are. Songs like, a Luke Combs song or the new Jason Aldean, Carrie Underwood song.
Yeah, I did want to get into that because that's probably the biggest complaint that you hear is repetitiveness and repeating the same songs or whatever. So I always thought they probably just play, there's some sort of algorithm or something that shows, well, this is what's going to get the most radio plays, right?
Because we want, when someone tunes into our radio station, we want them to hear the hits.
Yeah.
We want them to hear the songs they love. And we try our very best through that program, through that algorithm, through the scheduling software to anticipate that.
Because there's kind of a sweet spot you want to hit where you're not playing the same thing over and over and over and over and over, but you also, when people click on your radio station, they're hearing a song that they want to hear, because you don't want them to click on your radio station, you're playing some underground, obscure shit.
Yeah. I mean, and look, that's the thing nowadays. People will call up sometimes and want to request a song by some up-and-coming TikTok artist. And, I'm all for that. But it's never going to get played on this radio station until they hit it big because that's just not what we're built for.
Right.
And with all the freaking formats and media they have out there to find this favorite song of their favorite TikTok artist, go fucking listen to it yourself. I mean...
Yeah. Open Spotify.
Yeah, thank you. Why? I'll never understand that. And I love my listener. I love you. 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 But I'll never understand that. Why? Is it just the thrill of hearing your favorite song on the radio and thinking you had some control over that? I'd love for someone to, from a listener standpoint, I'd love for them to explain that mentality to me.
Well,
especially in this day and age.
There's people out there that, still aren't very familiar with technology, or they just flat out don't want to use it.
I guess, but yeah, you can pop on YouTube or Spotify or whatever and
I agree.
And listen to that song over and over again until you throw up.
Well, that leads me into something else I wanted to ask you.
Go ahead.
So you're very, very familiar with audio and audio quality and all that stuff. I've heard, and I don't really notice a difference myself, but I've heard that digital music sounds worse than something that is played from like an 8-track or a CD or a vinyl record. Is that true?
I'm going to tell you right now, and this is a very unpopular opinion. This is a very unpopular opinion because there are audiophiles out there who swear hand to God that vinyl is so much better than digital.
Yeah.
Yeah, bullshit. I mean, honestly, it's digital audio quality. There are so many. It is right to the ones and zeros. I mean, it is being taken from this microphone, digitally recorded, with no loss whatsoever.
Yeah.
And with those old, and look, I got a record player at home. I listen to my.
Hey, I love vinyl records,
Yeah.
and there's another piece to that too. Is that when you're hearing all those little crackles and pops and people like that. I get that,
and it's a nostalgia thing, and that's what I wanted to get to. They say vinyl is better than digital because you get the clicks and pops. I don't want to hear clicks and pops. I want a clean sounding. When I jam that up to 11 on my fucking car radio, I don't want to hear. I want to. When I'm listening to Tupac, I don't want to make it sound like someone's wrapping a present for Christmas. I don't. So look, I appreciate you audiophiles who love your vinyl, and I say it's always going to be better. But we're just going to have to agree to disagree because I don't get it.
I love vinyl because it's cool to do.
Yeah, it's cool. And I fell under the peer pressure. I went out and bought myself a record player and got my Carpenters records and just I love it. Me and the Carpenters, we jam out.
Well, also another thing though is that people don't really get into listening to a full album anymore as like a story. A lot of it.
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
Most people, they're clicking on their favorite hits on Spotify, or they're creating a playlist or whatever.
Which is so funny. We create these playlists of like 60 songs, and what's the first thing we do? We start shuffling. And then what's the first thing we do? We skip through the shuffle.
Yeah.
Because we want to find our jam.
I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that.
Where's my jam? Where's California? Look, California. Because we know when that comes on, we're
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of that, can't wait for the Super Bowl halftime show.
Dude, no shit.
Are you kidding me?
I'm stoked.
Are you kidding me? My sound, I might melt my subwoofer down on my sound system on my TV because I wish I had like a 14-year-old in my house so I could just educate them.
Yeah,
you know,
I'm stoked, man.
Oh,
this is the first Super Bowl halftime show I can remember being pumped for.
I might pee a little. I'm just saying because I'm that excited. So anyway,
and you know what's sad is that the newer kids, younger kids, probably don't even really recognize those guys anymore.
Well, okay, I'm gonna ask a personal question. How old are you?
27.
Okay, so see, for me, you're one of those younger kids, but you're just on the far end of that sweet spot where you still are familiar with the.
I'm not old enough to really remember Tupac and Biggie.
But your parents probably listened to it, or at least slipped it on him.
My parents are super old school.
Okay,
but I got into it myself because I'm just a rap fan.
Sure,
all around.
Well, it's just like kids nowadays who are discovering Zeppelin for the first time. Which is fine. So
I wish I could rediscover Zeppelin for the first time again.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So anyway,
but I did grow up in that Eminem era, and
Eminem is so good.
Yeah,
he is so incredibly talented and so underrated. And
kids don't remember how popular he was in the early 2000s.
I know.
Everybody had that CD Eminem show or whatever.
His song Cinderella Man is my jam. You want to get pumped up for something, like if you're walking to the gym and you just want to fight somebody, you put on Cinderella Man, because that shit, it's like watching a Rocky movie and you come out of a Rocky movie going, I can whip anybody's ass, because it's that good. So anyway.
When I'm trying to just relax, I'll put on like Kim or something.
Yep.
Where he's like killing his wife.
Yep, that's good. That always makes you kind of relax a little bit. Jesus, that's so dark. Yeah, why are you so dark all of a sudden? So.
No, I'm kidding. But dude, super pumped for it. Love the old school stuff.
Yep. So I love what I do. It's I'd love to, and I love talking about it, because I don't think everyone really has a good idea of exactly how it works unless they've been in the studio. When I have guests in the studio, talk about their fundraisers and things like that.
So what time does your day start?
Between 2:30 and 3 in the morning. I wake up.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I knew it was really early.
Yeah.
I mean, you're basically on like the tail end of third shift. Almost.
Not as early as TV though. I had lunch with Jake Dunn from KWCH. Shout out to Jake. Having dinner with him and his wife in a couple of weeks, but had a lunch with him the other day, and when he gets in there for the morning news to do his weather forecasting and stuff, it's like 1 in the morning. Hey, look, I'll take that a couple extra hours for sure. But
so what time do you wake up?
Okay, so I wake up between 2:30 and 3. I get into the studio by about 3:30 at the latest. I know, but I've always been a morning person. I mean, because the commercial fishing stuff that started early, especially in the summertime. Because up in Maine, we were the first to see the sunrise in the United States. So I mean,
you never get to see the sun when you're driving to work in the morning,
right?
Do you?
No. Okay, that's an accurate statement. Back in the day when I used to work Saturdays, when I first started at KFDI. When I first worked Saturdays, I would see it at like 5 o'clock in the morning in the summertime. But so it's one of those things where I get there about 3:30, and then between 3:30 and 5, there's certain things I have to do. I record the Country Music Minute, because I always take the night's stories, the most recent ones I can get. I do our watch list, which is sort of our entertainment report. Kind of gimmick behind that is 3 or 4 big entertainment stories, and then I kind of recommend 3 or 4 things that people should watch, or the critics are saying people should watch, and maybe stuff they're not necessarily familiar with or might be out of their wheelhouse, But there's so much. I think we can agree there's so much content out there on TV right now that it's hard to watch it all. So my idea behind creating the watch list was A, to cut through all that noise, and B, give another element to the sales department to generate revenue, which is
for sure,
another important piece, to get it sponsored, generate some revenue. So it was a two piece.
And it's nice for people that are regular listeners too, because they can hear, they don't have to research it themselves.
Right.
They can,
so when they get to work, they can find out that Kanye and Kim are still bitching at each other, so whatever.
Well, because people that listen to you regularly probably think that they have something in common with you, right? They probably feel like, I like this guy. This is a personality that's similar to mine, that I would hang out with.
And that's the way I've always tried to, and that's what I love about the format of what we're doing here. That's something I've always told people, that's what I always wanted to try and create when it came to my radio show that were just, I'm just having a conversation with you. We're just sitting across the table, telling stories. I don't want to be your atypical radio guy. Hey, it's 6:15 in the morning. The sky is blue. The lights are green. It's a smooth ride into the. Nobody wants to listen to that. Nobody wants to listen to that. They want someone who's just going to feel real, and I try to feel real.
Yes. They want to feel like you're sitting there in the car with them.
Exactly. And that's what I try to do each and every morning. And for the most part, I feel it works.
I think you do a good job of it, man.
I appreciate that very much. So I do those pieces and I get ready, and then I do my research for stories that happen overnight. Then we get back to that piece I was telling you about when I'm 75% prepped for the show. But if something happened overnight and I need to pivot, for you fans, if I need to pivot, then I drop what I figure out I can drop, and I move that stuff in. But
what time do you go live?
5:09-ish, 5:10-ish in the morning.
That's oddly specific.
Well, okay. you kind of have to be. So we have our news, and then we do one or two songs, and then I go live after that.
Okay, so you have about an hour then where you're doing your pre-planning and stuff.
About an hour and 15 minutes where I'm doing all the prep and the recording and the production and all that, and then I have a chance to take a couple sips of coffee and get ready to go. So. And
then you do your radio show all the way until 10 o'clock?
Until 10 o'clock, yep. And then when 10 o'clock rolls around, I'm doing commercial production. I'm piecing together the podcast from that morning's show, which is easier nowadays because you have a third-party service that basically allows you to record digitally all your breaks without the music.
That's what all radio shows are going to now, too, right?
Yeah.
They're doing a podcast for people that can listen afterwards.
Sure, exactly. Exactly. And that's helpful, too. And my mother loves it. Shout out to Mom over in New Hampshire. She loves being able to listen on the podcast in case she misses it. So, I do that. I schedule a couple of social media posts throughout the day. So even when I leave the building, at least because at the end of the day, I treat what I do as a brand, more so these days than I had back 15 years ago. You have to, with social media, they kind of forced your hand. I can't think of myself as an air personality solely anymore. It's a brand.
I can't imagine that you would be able to keep up with everybody else if you weren't on all the social media platforms, keeping a presence like that,
TikTok was something I was really uncomfortable with. Maybe
same.
Maybe it's because of my age. And that was a misconception because there's a lot of old people on TikTok, But I got onto TikTok, and not to bring the room down, but this is a part of my story and a part of my radio story. I got onto TikTok when my late wife was in the hospital with COVID, and she always hated the idea of me going on another social media platform. And my late wife was very much an introvert. Michelle was very much an introvert.
I'm sorry to hear that, by the way.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, October 9th, 2020, COVID took her. And so when she was in the hospital and I had COVID, for those 2 weeks I was working at home, I was, to use an old Maine expression, I was just bored out of my tits. Told you fishermen were very, very colorful. Bored out of my tits. So I was bored. God Almighty, I was bored. And so it was just me and Maverick the cat. The other animals in the house wanted nothing to do with me. I had a pit bull, a Rhodesian Ridgeback, and a black cat named Keegan, who was Michelle's cat, and then Maverick was our foster fowl. Maverick was hanging out with me. He watched the cursor move on the computer while I was broadcasting and started to play with it like a laser pointer or something. So I started shooting some quick videos and putting them up on TikTok, and that's how my TikTok days started. And if not for that, I never would have met my new wife, because my wife now, Amy, and I bonded over our mutual grief. She lost her husband back in July of 2020, so shortly before I lost Michelle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I went to TikTok and started, I was venting, I was angry, I was pissed, and I was sad, and out of the hundreds of people who shot me instant messages, slipped into my DMs, as the kids say, and said, hey man, if you need to talk, I'm here for you. Out of the hundreds of people who offered me that gift, I felt compelled to respond to Amy, and we chatted, and it started by just chatting, and then to texting, and then live phone calls, and then FaceTime videos. And then we decided to throw all caution to the wind and meet. It was New Year's Eve weekend of 2021. It was her birthday on the 2nd of January, and we decided, she was up in Indiana, and I was here in Wichita, and we decided, you know what, let's just meet halfway in St. Louis. I ain't gonna lie, this could have gone horribly wrong. Complete stranger, Airbnb for the weekend. I mean, let that sink in. Never met this woman in my life. Sure, we had chatted on the phone.
Yeah, I'd be a little
stuff.
scared.
Yeah, but it was the best 3 days. It was so great that it made us realize lots of things, including that her Dave and my Michelle had and God, honestly, and I tell this story all the time, had probably had a hand in bringing us together. But you know,
I'm happy for you, man.
Thank you very much. And I tell that story because it's important to understanding how I do my radio, and it's all going to tie back around to where we were talking, how I do my radio show, because I want to be that person where you feel like you can just talk to them. You know, so many times listeners call up and air some of the worst things of their lives going on right now, and everybody's mountain is real. Everybody's mountain they have to climb is real. Whether it's I got in a fender bender that morning, or they lost somebody, they're still going to call up and they just want to hear a song. They just want to hear a damn song.
Right.
Again, go to Spotify. But anyway, when they call in their worst moment of their life at that particular morning, I sit and talk to them. You know, I'm not a douchebag. I'll sit and talk to you. I'll make time for you. But I'll be honest with you. If my song's running out and I got to talk, I'll either tell you to hang on or call back later or something like that. But I understand. I can recognize the humanity behind it and the human condition that they're going through a tough day. So
that's a beautiful thing, man.
You know, it's super important. And so that's what drove me to go on the air. My wife passed on a Friday the 9th. I went on the air on Monday the 12th.
Really? You're a strong bastard.
I don't know whether it was strong so much as it just felt right. You know, they relied on me to get them through, and this is how I phrased it. So I now needed to lean on them, and I did. They were my radio family. They were my friends. They were my family, and I needed them to get me. And I didn't do it for long. I did it for like 3 days between lack of sleep and just at that point the grief was starting to settle in. I then excused myself from radio for a couple of weeks and went and took care of what I needed to take care of. But that's a big part of me as far as how I treat my radio show. You know, there's so much, and I'm not saying this to try and generate ratings. I'm not, because if that were the case, then you know I'd be beating the pants off everybody in this radio market, and I do okay. I'm always consistently up there, but I do this because I genuinely believe my listeners are more than just listeners. You know, it's so important to me to have them make time with all the choices they have out there. They make time,
especially today.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, you can find anything you want on your phone.
Yeah, I could be the last thing you want to hear in your ears that morning. But the fact that so many people actually go out of the way and choose to have me.
That goes to show you're doing something right.
Yeah, so I appreciate that very much. I have much love for my listeners, for sure.
Yeah, well, cheers to you for doing that, and cheers to your late wife.
Yeah, thank you very much. To Michelle, yeah.
So one thing that I've always been curious of is, are you able to actually see how many people are tuning in?
To a degree. So it used to be Arbitron, now it's Nielsen who bought Arbitron, and there's a ratings system in place. And I have to be very careful about how I describe this because we're always in a ratings period, and I can't say anything that's going to encourage people to give me credit. It used to be papered, what they called diaries, and they would send out a certain number, a sample size, they call it. So for a market like Wichita and the surrounding area, the total survey area, they call it, which is about 500,000 people, they send out, 800 diaries. And it's a statistical, scientific equation that apparently is a pretty good representation of who's listening to what where. And they break it down into tens of thousands of people and so on and so forth. So that's how it's calculated. You know, I've always had a saying about ratings because they can shift so quickly from one ratings period to the next. They honestly can. There are some who do it consistently, you know, which is great. But for the most part, I think most everyone will agree with me. You can be on the top of the mountain 1 minute and then, you know, halfway down the next. And then the next month go right back up again. It all depends on where those diaries land. Sometimes they're weighted heavily toward the male demographics. Sometimes they're weighted heavily toward the female demographics. Sometimes it's an even distribution. Again, apparently Nielsen, formerly Arbitron, statistically believed in the science and the statistics behind it, the math behind it, and all that. But I have a saying, and ever since I told my boss this, he laughs, because for me, good or bad, ratings, either way, I'll be drinking. I mean, that's as honest as I can be. I appreciate the fact that ratings are done, but I've come to peace with the decisions that are made based on ratings. It is what it is. You know, I hope to God I get credit for every ratings diary that falls into all those houses, but that's just not the case. People do put down what they put down. They put down what they listen to, and that's what
that's
what you're supposed to do. Because if I went out there and tried to bribe people or encourage people to be shady, I lose my job. The station gets fined. So,
plus it's mentally taxing if you're constantly thinking about and trying to improve your ratings and your listens and even like views and stuff for YouTube. Drives you mad.
You will drive yourself crazy.
You have to just do your art, put it out there,
trust your skill set.
Yes.
Believe that you've, at the end of the day, if you can walk out of and I always told people I guided, that I managed, I'm like, if you can walk out of the studio at the end of the day and feel like you did the best show you could, then that's all I can ask.
Mm-hmm.
But if you walk out of that studio and go, I should have done that, well then be better prepared the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where we're at. So,
do you have any advice for people out there that want to get into radio?
Oh Jesus, don't do it. No, okay. So no, it's hard because again, the format of how we are entertained is always changing. And is terrestrial radio still going to be a thing in 10 years? Because that's always the biggest question. And maybe I'm just hanging on to the past. I believe it will be, for this simple reason. When I first got into radio, and I still believe this today, I think radio was originally created way back in those days to be local, to talk about the bean suppers and the church fundraisers and the local news about how, Uncle Merle's cow got loose and caused a 3-wagon pileup down at, an intersection of, I don't know, and who cares?
That is true, because, you can tune in all sorts of stuff, podcasts, whatever you want to listen to now, but the radio is a dude sitting in your own city.
Right, and going to Dillon's and pumping my gas at your gas station. And so, yes, so I think there's always going to be a need for local radio. Will it always be a full staff of a morning guy, a midday personality, an afternoon personality, a night guy, an overnight guy? No. I'll be lucky if here in the next few years, to renew my contract, and it won't be anything that I've given my blood, sweat, and tears for this radio station, and I would, and if they gave me the opportunity to re-sign my contract, that won't change. But if they were to, at the end of my contract, at the end of this year, say, well, JJ, we're just gotta let you go. So
it's all under a contract at a radio station?
Yeah, most stations.
So you're not. Are there any radio hosts that are employed as like an hourly employee or a salary employee?
Smaller markets maybe.
Really? So you basically have to sell yourself and then sign a contract to radio stations.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah, pretty much. You when you're applying for a job, you give them your audio demo and your resume and your cover letter, and then you interview for it. And my situation was kind of unique. I was in Virginia. I'd been there for about 5 years plus, and management and I could tell we weren't seeing eye to eye, and so I sent out a audio demo and a resume to what we call a blind box, an employment box. I had no idea where it was going. Turns out it went to a consultant who was consulting KFDI at the time. So 3 or 4 months went by and I hadn't heard anything, so I honestly had forgotten about it. And I checked LinkedIn, and I never check LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my least used social media, like twice a year maybe. And I happened to check it real quick, and there was this message from Justin. He's like, hey, give me a call. I'm like, who is this guy? I don't know Justin. I called him anyway, and that began the world's longest interview process. He flew Michelle and I into Wichita March of 2014, and we hung out for the weekend, and actually that Sunday morning, he put me on the air here in Wichita just to kind of get a feel for it, and I kept on saying the damn call letters wrong. I kept on saying KDFI. Damn it, he's standing right behind me, and I'm going, KDFI, you're never going to get the job. Thankfully, I did, and I say the call letters correctly now. But it's just one of those things where I just got lucky to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did.
We're all glad you did too, man.
I can't imagine doing it anything differently. I love my job at KFDI, and as long as they'll keep letting me in the building and don't change my key code card, then we'll be all right. So
right on. Well, do you want to shout out your social media handles and all that stuff?
Yeah, really. I tried my very best. It's at JJ on KFDI, at JJ on KFDI on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I don't get
JJ on KFDI.
That's what it is. JJ on KFDI.
All together.
Yeah.
Okay.
All one word. I'm not on Snapchat. I don't get it. Look, I don't. I'm not the demo.
Nudes.
Okay. Well, I got a few of those circulating out there. That's for another show. Listen, this was a ton of fun. Thank you for bringing in the bourbon. The Four Roses is always one of my favorites, and And good for you for starting.
Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
I'm going to spread the word about this podcast.
I appreciate it, man.
I think it's great. And we're going to get Logan Mize on here for you.
We're going to get Logan Mize on here?
That's my goal. Challenge accepted. I'm going to reach out to Logan.
You're too kind, man.
I'm going to say, Logan, dude, if you don't come through with my ask, you got to go see this guy about careers.
Well, he lives out here, so
yeah.
Maybe that'll sell him.
Maybe.
You know.
All right.
Thank you for waking everybody up every morning in
Thank you.
Wichita and
Cheers.
being you.
Yeah.
Cheers, brother.
Appreciate it.